Hey, you're listening to Blindsight. Let's go. Mental health isn't something to take lightly. It's time to fight. It's time to thrive. Let's do this.
Welcome to Blindsight. This is Bill Lundgren, your host, and I'm glad to have you tuning in. Today is going to be especially interesting because, over the past 9 weeks, we've been doing one step at a time. And now, after the 9th, if you remember the last week, the 9th, we were talking about making amends. Now we get into the last 3 steps where we're really making an ongoing process to assure that we've done in the other steps and to continue it and make it a part of our lives. And I am just delighted to have with us Joe, who's a retired physician and has been a friend of mine for a while. And I was just delighted to have him come on board. Welcome, Joe.
Hi, everybody. This is Joe.
And what I wanted to do is do you remember the 10th step, the wording of the 10th step?
Yes, yeah. The 10th step is that we continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it.
And there's also the piece of spiritual, continuing to maintain the spirituality, if I remember.
That's correct. That's in the 11th step.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
The 10th step happens to be, and I actually brought my 12 by 12, which is a book published by AA that gives us the 12 steps and 12 traditions. Step 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. And the spiritual aspect is step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out.
Great, I stand corrected, and I think that makes sense. That the thing that I want to ask is, how did you get to this place, and what is it like for you, if you make a mistake, to where we tend not to want to do that, to immediately admit it?
Well, this is a highly relevant topic for me, having been involved personally in the 12th step program for 34 years. It's easy, having done the first 9 steps, when one is given all this relief, hopefully by then, and has developed a lot of knowledge about oneself, to feel that the addiction is gone. But it's not. It's progress, not perfection, and I've realized through the years that I am an addict, and that's the way I'm made. And the 10th step, in which we are called to continue to take personal inventory, is vital to keep me on track so that I can maintain a sense of serenity and stay clean and sober. Of note, when this topic came up, Bill, I think it was a God thing. The topic came up, and I was rereading my notes and my big book and thinking about it, and realized that I have to cop to having a lot of resentment these days. I've been dealing with a lot of anger and resentment about the world situation, and I'm deliberately going to avoid any of my personal opinions, but so everybody out there can relax. I'm not going to go off on that, but I do have opinions, and I don't think I'm alone. This is a very divisive time, and the that I have developed and nurtured are hurting me. And the 10th step is most apropos for me to practice this and to put it into practice. And I was thinking this would be a really good venue for me to talk about how it works in real time for me with my personal experience, strength, and hope.
Well, you said that it's damaging to you. How so? I mean, we sometimes it's hard to get through life, or maybe from my side of things, where we don't feel some, resentment or some anger at what's going on. So,
right. And that's, I think that's one of the points that I wanted to make, that the step reads, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it, implies that at some level it's only necessary to do inventory when we misbehave. Although for me, what I've developed over the years is an awareness that sometimes I'm convinced that I'm right, that I have a justified anger, that my opinion is correct.
There you go.
And the problem is that one of the key drivers of my own lack of serenity would be righteous indignation. In the 4th step, we go through or at least the way I did it, we went through the 7 deadly sins. Pride, lust, anger, greed, gluttony, envy, sloth, as a means to try to get a handle on what drove my behaviors. And I've learned, 67 now, I've learned that very much I'm egocentristically prideful and egocentristically angry, and righteous indignation is probably the biggest driver of my own resentment. And so even though I might be right, and even though I can think about it any which way I want, I feel I'm right, the concept of justifiable anger is a loaded bomb for an addict. It's very dangerous for me to fall into the righteous indignation. I developed my sponsor called it the screaming fantods, which I just love. It's sort of implies the tantrum, the angry, self-righteous belittling of an opponent in discussion. And even if I go that far, then of course I would owe somebody an amend, which has been known to happen. But even if I'm careful to rope it in, walking around with that anger burning inside as a coal, when I hear a news broadcast about something that I find offensive, or somebody publicly comes loose with an opinion that I find offensive, it can lead literally to hatred, which is the exact antithesis of everything we're trying to do as recovering addicts. It is impossible to have serenity and to hate. And I don't, with any sense of anything other than I want to help people who might experience what I experience. But hatred and anger and righteous indignation, even unexpressed, is to me the very first thing I have to address. So when we were wrong, promptly admitted it, that's true. But sometimes for me, it's even a concept of when we were right, we have to do some work to make sure that we don't behave wrongly.
Well, how would we behave wrongly? So-and-so says something that is so off the wall, and I'm going to be angry about it. I'm not going to be a Pollyanna and say, "Oh, that's okay," or how do so what do we do with it?
Absolutely. That's the how does one not be naive and yet still maintain one's serenity in a
Right.
time of turmoil?
Right. Which is a tall order right now.
It is. And yet, very much that's what I believe I am called to do as an addict. And so, in those situations, when somebody harms me, they may say something harmful, they may even do something harmful. How do I respond without hatred? How do I protect myself and respond without hatred? And so this is where the serenity prayer is so key.
I got you. I got you.
This step for me is really the serenity prayer. God grant me the wisdom to know the things I can change and can't change.
Yeah.
If it's a politician on the television, that's pretty easy that I can't change that politician.
Right.
And if it's somebody in my face harming me, then there maybe is something that I can do about that to protect myself or my loved ones. Although my own experience is much of the conflict that comes my way is imaginary. It really isn't directly in my face. It's not directly threatening me. They are my opinions. My opinions. And I don't feel that I'm alone in this because I see many people who are very engaged in the political debates of our time. I'll give you an example. When the United Healthcare executive was assassinated, I've been involved in healthcare my entire career, and one of my resentments, frankly, is against the healthcare industry and specifically United Healthcare. And if anybody listening is working for them, I don't mean to engage or harm you in any way. What I'm trying to say is it triggered anger within me because the injustice that was expressed with that assassination, the injustice of United Healthcare was on the line, as well as the injustice of the person who assassinated that person. And like many others, I'm not proud of this, but I felt a secret glee about the assassination, which I recognized is a form of hatred.
Yeah.
And that coal, which I had hoped to extinguish 30 some years ago, wasn't extinguished. It's still a part of me. God has not yet released me from that, and for whatever reason, but I don't wish to engage in that. I want to be better than that. And so when I recognize that in myself, that's time for a 10th step. So I didn't do anything. I didn't assassinate the man. I didn't help the person who did it. And I would, God forbid, harm his family in any way. If they heard this, I apologize and I'm sorry. I don't want anybody who's been affected by that to be harmed by what I'm saying. But I'm only bringing this up as an illustration of my own weakness,
Right.
And my own need for the 10th step, my own need to back away and say, this is clearly a situation that I cannot change. I cannot change the healthcare industry. I have to accept and be serene. In my day-to-day practice, I was able to do things to get around the healthcare industry, things I didn't like. but now that's no longer my burden.
Right. The advantage of retirement.
It's an advantage of retirement, for sure. Although it's still there. And then in my mind, I go, well, active. Why am I not active in making these changes that I think are so important to the industry? I would never choose the assassination route, but why couldn't I get political? Why can't I? And I've realized I'm not made for that. That's not my, I don't, as an addict, I have to leave that to people with a more balanced,
I see.
with a more balanced emotional state that can handle that without losing their grip on serenity. So for me, the 10th step very much starts internally. Where am I at? Where's my serenity? It can be a beautiful spring day, as it is today. It's gorgeous out. And if I'm driving and hear a radio report that disturbs me, and I go into this internal cauldron of anger, that's clearly where the 10th step is necessary. I need that before it boils over.
So what you're saying is that I need to, I guess, calm myself down. And as you say, one of the ways is to know that there really isn't anything that you can do, that this kind of thing happens. And the result, like the assassination, is something I'm hearing you say you don't want to happen. But at the same time, you sort of understand because you have that resentment that somebody else expressed in a way that you don't approve of. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And yet I want to clarify there's a big difference between accepting a situation that I cannot change and hopelessness. There's always room for hope. In the most dire situations, there are things that I can do. In my case, it generally, the most important thing I can do is not despair.
Right.
And not harm my loved ones and my circle with a comedy of anger and hopelessness. I have children that are growing up in this difficult world, and I want to show them a pathway that is not one of despair, that's one of hope, but not naive hope. And so the 10th step for me is a line that needs to be addressed daily. It's a difficult step. It's not one and done. It's every day. I very much have noticed, and most important point I was going to make is I've noticed that the emotions of anger and fear, for me, are emotional responses I have to take seriously, to stop and take a look at.
Right.
They're not necessarily wrong. I might have reason to be afraid. My fear is not always irrational, and it's a good thing I have it. It can keep me out of trouble. And my anger is not always irrational either, as we've talked about. Sometimes I think it's important to state the truth. But those are not emotions that I can indulge in for long. I have to kind of stop and pause and make a decision about what am I going to do about this emotion? Does it require an action? And if not, there are suggestions in the program for how to those emotional states.
Well, there's some people who we get together with, and all they have is the anger. And you can't do anything about it except possibly to avoid them. And also what I'm hearing you say, I can't be one of those people.
That's correct. I have I'm pretty much committed to maintaining relationships with my friends who don't share my opinions politically.
That's a rock.
And but I really think that's what is really the rock bottom of this whole issue. How do we take a kindly and tolerant and loving view towards everyone? Everyone. People that are trying to harm us, people we might disagree with. How do we have the kindly view towards everyone? That's a standard that I don't claim to have met, but that's a standard that I think is the right standard for me.
How do you do that? Do you have any formulas that you think might work? It's a matter of application, because people do love to get your goat.
Yeah,
That's a reality. And certainly in that kind of situation, I would imagine it's walking away and saying, okay, you're not going to do that to me.
that's correct.
You know where it's coming from. But, there are some people who just touch those sore spots.
That's correct.
And you say, okay, I feel the anger. That anger.
Well, a good one is, frankly, count to 10.
Yeah.
That's always a good one. It's very important to do. And you're right. Some people, I do think we will end up having to walk away from.
Right.
Which includes turning off the television.
Mm-hmm. Which I've done.
And honestly, that's one of the reasons I don't have social media, is there's a lot of vitriol floating around that I would find disturbing. Some of it self-reinforcing, some of it argumentative, but it doesn't do anything except stir me up. So not allowing myself to indulge in self-righteousness is probably the hardest step. Well,
we know what's right.
Yes. Well, yeah, I'm a smart guy. I'm educated, and I've thought this all through. And like every addict, I know that I am right. I've already thought it through to the end, and any disagreement obviously just needs more discussion on my part. That strategy obviously fails. I don't know that I've ever changed anyone's opinions based on a political discussion. It's so I don't engage in futility when somebody pushes a button. And I think walking away or changing the subject is important. And yet walking away without absolutely severing that relationship sometimes is important. I mean, there are people I would just walk away from and say, thanks to God, I don't have to ever engage. I don't really want to be in that room, and it's distressing and futility embodied, so I don't need to be with that person. If I can change their mind, perhaps, although, like I said, that's unlikely.
Yeah.
And so probably disengagement. But then we have loved ones, and I am aware of relationships that have completely split over political lines, and maybe that has to happen. I mean, for me, I think it's important to try to find an area of common ground and not let go completely. I think we are called very much in the 12 step to have a kindly view, but that doesn't mean a nice.
What's the distinction to you? A kindly view versus a naive view. How do you make that?
The kindly view is easier if I view myself correctly as someone who's still growing up. I see myself very much in that light. Even though I'm older, I'm still growing up. I'm still learning. And if I can accept that in myself, it's much easier to see that that other people are still growing up.
Oh, okay.
And maybe there's a way I can help them grow up. Most of the time there may not be, but just having enough charity to remain with somebody is a sign of respect.
Right.
And I don't know how my higher power works, but my higher power is very, very subtle things. Sometimes just a kindly gesture, or not engaging in anger, not allowing oneself to go into hatred, is extraordinarily powerful. I don't know how secular the program is, and this is maybe getting ahead of the 11th step.
Yeah.
But I think it's important at this point not to evangelize or sound like there's a particular higher power that an addict needs to have, but the model that I follow says turn the other cheek.
Yeah. Okay.
Love thy neighbor. And how many times do we forgive? Well, 70 times 7. Even if one doesn't have a Christian belief, those principles are still embedded in the big book of AA.
That's
Very
right.
much. That's the program. Is not to allow one's hatred to dominate one's actions.
I guess one of the mechanisms too may be to just simply acknowledge that they have a right to their opinion, and while you don't agree with their thinking, you still respect that they're thinking about the issue. In other words, to say, at least you're paying attention. You and I disagree, but I respect the fact that you have certain opinions, and to just leave it at that, or in saying that the heat is going up and I'd like to, for us to tone it down, can I change the subject, or can I in some way encourage us to move into safer grounds without having that person feel put down or ignored or anything like that? Did that make sense?
It does. It does for me in my little sheltered life, although there are people who confront true evil.
Yeah.
There is truly evil in the world, and there are truly evil people. And God willing, I am going to be spared those encounters, because that would require, I don't have an answer for that. How does one respond?
For evil people, that's a different ball game.
Yeah.
But the question is, what do we do to the evil people making us cross over the line in terms of our reactions or our anger? Anger, what I talk about with clients is always that anger is as valid an emotion as any of the others. It's what we do with it that's the problem. And I think that's what we're talking about now. Yeah, the big book is not telling you not to get angry, but it is talking about ways to deal with it. And what you've been talking about now has been, here's how I handle it. And I know people have talked about, for example, when you have that anger building up, you're a cyclist, so you take your bike out as being one way to get some of that anger out, I assume.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And anger, and to be clear, I agree. Anger is an important, valid emotion. And I distinguish between anger and resentment.
Ah, okay.
Although I will say, as an addict, that difference is hard for me to fathom and see.
Yeah.
And so what you are picking up in this is not the gospel. you're picking up an individual. I'm just trying to relate my own 10th step issue. But again, I don't think I'm that far off from many addicts, I think,
Right.
are like me. The difference between anger and resentment is a very, very short, slippery slope. So anger, I would not say is a bad emotion. It can be extraordinarily important. And you're right, Bill, what we do with it, go for a bike ride, go for a walk, count to 10. Those are all really important things. Talk to somebody. I'm just pointing out that is a very, that's something that I've identified as a key player in my own sobriety,
Right.
is to not let anger go unexamined.
Right. And you're also saying with the 10th step is when you're wrong, to admit it. And part of what I'm hearing you say, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that the resentment, as far as you're concerned, is something that is you have to acknowledge, and you may have to ask, if not forgiveness of the person, forgiveness to yourself for having developed that resentment. Am I hearing that right?
Yes, I'm trying. What I'm trying to do is avoid having to make an amend. I don't want to harm somebody,
Right.
because I know that resentment doesn't just stay inside and fester. Yeah. It often expresses itself in my being socially inappropriate. Treating somebody to the screaming fantods is no fun for them.
No.
It doesn't help them. Losing it at exploding could be a real problem.
Right.
What I'm talking about, I think, is that in the 10th step, it starts inside.
Yes, absolutely.
And when we were wrong, admitted it is definitely the key point. But in my experience, for me, I'm not wrong very often. And I have engaged in behaviors that were clearly wrong and have had to deal with that and make amends. But even when I'm right, it can really be an issue throwing me off the track.
Absolutely.
Having a thought of hatred for anybody, anything,
you're talking about prevention, really, basically, rather than allowing yourself to go to the point where you actually do something for which you have to make amends. You're heading it off, and looking at ways to head it off at the path.
Absolutely, yes.
That makes a lot of sense.
The 10th step is a spiritual maintenance step.
Right.
It allows us as addicts to see something coming before it hits us.
Mm-hmm.
My sponsor said most people would rather be right than happy.
You got it. Very wise man. We've come to the end of what's available right now. And I'm looking forward to having you come in next week and be able to talk about the 11th step. But I wondered if there is some closing message you'd like to leave with the people who are listening.
Yes, any brothers and sisters who are addicts, I want you to know that people are there to help. The program works, and you're not alone.
Good. And I think my closing, sir, I really, really appreciate your willingness to come in and be with us today, and look forward to continuing the process. You obviously, in the amount of time that you've been in the program, have really incorporated it in in the things that you do. But the fact is, we are human, and we do make mistakes. And the 10th step is, one, to prevent those mistakes from happening, but also give us a way of encouraging to make amends, to right the wrong. So it works both prevention, and if you have something that you wished had not happened, it's okay to admit it. And the question is always, will people think I'm a wimp if I make amends for something I did? But that's not the issue. So to everybody out there, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Joe, for being here. I really, really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you next week. We invite people to give us some feedback on this program or any of the programs they've been listening to. There are two ways that you can contact us. One is, of course, to use the line feedback at aftersight.org, which is a email way. And the other is to call the feedback line, which is 712-8865. So either of those ways, you can get in touch with us, leave us a program suggestion, whatever. But for now, we close and say thank you, Joe, for being here, and thank you all who are listening in for being here as well. Thank you.